Welcome back to Random History. I am your navigator as we explore the little-known events and people that make history such an amazing subject. The events I delve into are probably not the ones you learned about in school. These are the ones that when you do hear about them, you're likely to think that they could not possibly be real. But they are. In today's episode, we will hear the legend of a curse that dates back to 1811, although its first victim did not pass until 1841. It is the curse of the Zero Presidencies, and some say it is responsible for the deaths of 7 presidents. In today's True Hero segment, I'll be speaking of another one of my childhood heroes. And this is the first I have a memory of the event for which he is actually remembered, walking on the moon. He was one of the original 7 astronauts and the first American in space, Allan Shepard. The so-called Curse of the Zero Presidencies refers to a historical pattern in U.S. presidential history where every president whose term of office began with a year ending in 0, 1840, 1860, 1880, and so on, either died in office or faced a significant crisis during their presidency. This phenomenon has intrigued historians, political analysts, and the public alike, leading to numerous theories and interpretations about its implications. This episode explores the origins, instances, and interpretations of this historical curiosity. The concept of the curse emerged from a series of historical coincidences that have drawn the attention of scholars and enthusiasts. The idea gained traction after the death of William Henry Harrison in 1841, who was the first to fall victim to this peculiar pattern. Over time, each successive president whose term began with a year ending in 0 faced either death, assassination, or a significant national crisis. This pattern seemed too striking to ignore, prompting discussion about whether it was a mere coincidence or something more ominous. The legend's origins can be traced back to just before the War of 1812. In a remote part of northern Indiana, a battle took place between the frontiersmen of the territory, led by their governor, William Henry Harrison, and a growing confederation of Native American nations led by the Shawnee chief, Tecumseh, and his younger brother, Tenskwatawa, better known as the Prophet. Tecumseh was away recruiting more nations to join his followers on the banks of the Tippecanoe Creek in Indiana. The Prophet, overestimated his own leadership skills, was drawn into battle by Harrison, and the Confederation was destroyed. Native American survivors returned to their respective lands, abandoning Tecumseh in his dream of a united stand against the Americans. According to folklore, Tenskwatawa placed a curse on Harrison and his successors, foretelling that any president elected in the year ending in 0 would meet an untimely demise. The prophecy is said to have been rooted in the belief that the American victory had violated sacred Native American lands. Let's take a look at the prophet's curse. William Henry Harrison, the 9th president of the United States, is often cited as the first victim of the Zero Presidencies curse. Harrison was elected in 1840 and inaugurated on 4 March 1841. At 68 years old, he was the oldest president to serve until Ronald Reagan. He is said to have delivered an 8-hour inaugural address wearing no coat or hat in the freezing March rain. His presidency was cut short by his death on 4 April 1841, just 31 days into his term, making him the first president to die in office. Harrison's death was attributed to acute pneumonia and typhoid fever, exacerbated by his exposure to the elements during his long inaugural address. Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president, was elected in 1860 and inaugurated during a period of intense national division, leading to the Civil War. Lincoln's presidency was marked by profound challenges, including the secession of the southern states and the internal conflict of the Civil War. He was reelected in 1864, but his presidency was tragically cut short when he was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth on 14 April 1865, while attending a play at Ford's Theater. The third victim of the curse was James Garfield, the 20th president, elected in 1880. He was sworn in on 4 March 1881, but his presidency was marred by a crisis involving political patronage and factionalism. On 2 July 1881, Garfield was shot by Charles Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker. Garfield suffered the initial attack, but succumbed to his injuries and infections from the 19th century doctors literally digging through his wound trying to remove the bullet. He would linger until his death on 19 September 1881. His death would lead to civil service reform in government jobs. The curse's next victim, William McKinley, 25th president, was elected for his second term in 1900. McKinley's presidency was marred by issues related to imperialism and domestic unrest. On 6 September 1901, he was shot by Leon Czergals, an anarchist, while attending the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. McKinley died on 14 September 1901 due to gangrene caused by the bullet wounds. Warren G. Harding died unexpectedly in office during a tour of the western United States and Alaska, which he called his Voyage of Understanding. He had been elected in 1920, but was suffering from health issues for some time, including heart problems and persistent pneumonia. On 2 August 1923, while in San Francisco, Harding collapsed and died of what was officially reported as a heart attack, or maybe a stroke. However, rumors circulated that his wife, Florence Harding, might have actually poisoned him to prevent scandals from emerging about his alleged affairs, as well as political corruption, like the Teapot Dome scandal. These rumors were never substantiated, and modern historians largely attribute his death to natural causes. Victim number 6, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd president, was elected for an unprecedented third term in 1940. His presidency was defined by the Great Depression and World War II. Despite his leadership during the war, Roosevelt's health declined and he faced significant challenges. He was reelected to his fourth term in 1944, but died of a cerebral hemorrhage on 12 April 1945, just as World War II was nearing its end. The final death that goes along with the Zero Presidency curse is the death of JFK. President Kennedy, the 35th president, was elected in 1960, took office in 1961. His presidency was marked by the Cold War tensions and significant events such as the Cuban Missile Crisis, construction of the Berlin Wall, and the beginnings of the war in Vietnam. On 22 November 1963, Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. His assassination shocked the nation and had a profound impact on American politics and society, and sparked a plethora of conspiracy theories as to who was responsible for his murder. 1980 brought our 40th president, Ronald Reagan, to office. He was inaugurated in January of 1981. His presidency began with significant challenges, including severe economic recession and a hostage crisis in Iran, both of which he inherited from Jimmy Carter, his predecessor. On March 30th, 1981, Reagan was shot by John Hinckley Jr. while leaving a hotel in Washington, D.C. Reagan would survive the assassination attempt and continued his presidency. He would complete that term and get reelected in 1984 in one of the most lopsided elections in U.S. history. The elections in the year 2000 brought us George W. Bush, who served 2 complete terms without incident, showing that Reagan had truly broken the curse. The curse of the Zero Presidencies has been interpreted in various ways. Some historians disregard it as simply historical coincidence. They argue that the pattern is coincidence, not a genuine curse. They suggest that the incidents of presidents dying or facing crises in years ending in zero are simply a series of unrelated events that have been grouped together due to their temporal proximity. Some people say that it's simply psychological projection. This theory states that the curse reflects a human tendency to find patterns and meaning in historical events. This pattern recognition can lead people to perceive a curse where none exists, based solely on selective interpretation of data. And finally, some analyses propose that external factors, such as the political climate, the health of the president, or even social pressures of the time, could explain why so many presidents, from years ending in zero, face significant challenges or crises. For instance, the pressures of office and political discord may have exacerbated the existing health issues or contributed to the high rate of presidential crises. That, however, only explains the 3 deaths from illnesses, not the 4 assassinations and 1 attempted assassination. The curse of the Zero Presidencies remains a fascinating aspect of American presidential history. While some view it as a curious historical anomaly, others see it as a reminder of the unpredictability of political life and the immense pressures faced by those who hold the highest office in the land. Whether it is a genuine curse or merely a collection of coincidental events, the pattern provides a compelling narrative that continues to captivate historians, political analysts, and the general public alike. The instances of this so-called curse highlight the challenges and vulnerabilities faced by U.S. presidents, reflecting both the personal struggles of the individual involved and the broader historical context in which they governed. The legacy of the curse of the Zero Presidencies serves as a reminder of the often unpredictable nature of history and the enduring fascination with the lives of those who lead nations during times of crises. In psychology, there's a phenomena called flashbulb memory. Those are memories that are so vivid, so striking, that it's almost as if your brain took a snapshot of the event. These memories tend to stem from events that were highly emotional, highly charged events. I remember in 1981, I was sitting in my biology class when announcements came on that President Reagan had been shot. I remember vividly walking into my office when I was a financial advisor in 2001, and my boss following me in saying, "Everybody turn your TVs on to the news. The World Trade Center has just been hit by an airplane." Some of these events aren't quite as dramatic as those. One of my earliest memories is watching the launch of Apollo 14 on TV. I can still picture my family sitting in our family room watching the countdown and liftoff of the huge Saturn V rocket that would carry Allan Shepard, Stuart Roosa, and Edgar Mitchell to the moon. For Shepard, it was his second flight into space. And then several years later, my parents would meet Allan Shepard in the Aviation Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Dayton, Ohio. Shepard was truly one of my heroes. Allan Shepard was a trailblazer in both military aviation and space exploration. Remembered as the first American to travel into space and one of only 12 astronauts to walk on the moon, his career in the U.S. Navy and NASA spanned over 2 decades, marked by significant achievements that cemented his place in history. Allan Bartlett Shepard, Jr. was born on 18 November 1923 in East Derry, New Hampshire. Following his graduation from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1944, Shepard embarked on his military career during World War II. After the war, he completed flight training and became a naval aviator, serving on several aircraft carriers in the Pacific. In 1950, he attended the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School at Patuxent River, Maryland, where he honed his skills as a test pilot. His work included high-speed flight tests of advanced jet aircraft, which pushed the limits of aeronautical engineering at the time. Shepard's exceptional skill as a pilot and his experience in high-altitude flight operations set him apart. By the late 1950s, he had risen to the rank of lieutenant commander and was regarded as one of the Navy's top aviators. His expertise would play a pivotal role in his selection for the United States' new space program. In 1959, Shepard was chosen as one of the original 7 astronauts for the NASA's Project Mercury, the United States' first human spaceflight program. These astronauts, known as the Mercury 7, were tasked with advancing the country's efforts to catch up to the Soviet Union in the space race. On 5 May 1961, Shepard made history as the first American to travel into space aboard the Freedom 7 spacecraft, achieving a suborbital flight that lasted 15 minutes and 22 seconds. Shepard's flight reached an altitude of 116 miles and a speed of 5,100 miles per hour, demonstrating that human space travel was possible. His mission was a significant victory for NASA and helped restore American confidence following the Soviet Union's early space successes. Shepard became a national hero, widely celebrated for his courage and skill. After his spaceflight, Shepard continued to work for NASA but was grounded in 1963 due to Meniere's disease, a condition affecting the inner ear that causes dizziness and nausea. In 1969, after undergoing surgery to correct the condition, Shepard returned to active astronaut status. He was then selected to command Apollo 14, which would be NASA's third successful landing on the moon. On 5 February 1971, Shepard became the fifth person to walk on the moon. During the Apollo 14 mission, he famously hit 2 golf balls on the lunar surface, an iconic moment in space history. Under Shepard's leadership, Apollo 14 was a success, following the near disaster of Apollo 13. Shepard retired from both NASA and the Navy in 1974 at the rank of Rear Admiral. His contributions to both military aviation and space exploration left an indelible mark on history. Shepard's pioneering flights not only paved the way for future space missions, but also solidified his reputation as one of the most accomplished astronauts of his time. He passed away on 21 July 1998, leaving behind a legacy of bravery and innovation that continues to inspire new generations of aviators and astronauts. This brings us to the end of another episode. I hope you enjoyed listening and will come back and listen to future episodes as well. If you'd like to review the transcript or sources for the episode, click the link in the description. You can also make suggestions for future topics by clicking that same link, or my producer tells me there's now an email link in the description as well. Until next time, make some history of your own. Navigator out.